really believe you do that can control your children? What do you believe control is as it relates to your children? Okay. So I want to give you 4 concrete steps towards getting yourself on purpose.
Wasn't all bad. I learned about purpose and how to operate in powers that I had, but I ain't even know it. But just stay focused. What was put on God Green's earth for a purpose, and that's what's.
This is the Lovin Life On Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Robin Harris Walker. If this is your first time experiencing the podcast, I'd like to say welcome. If not, I'd like to say welcome back. This is an exciting month. I'm glad that you are all here to enjoy the podcast. Today, we're going to continue our series of talking to moms about the mom's role in purpose for her children. And last week, we talked about how we can identify when a child, a young adult, even a teenager is going through a challenge where it's obvious that they're lacking purpose and they're either counterproductive, they're not productive at all, or they're just seeking and sometimes can feel a little lost and also in a fog. And we talked about the mom's role and how the mom can, one, primarily concern herself with the child as the primary focus and not the outside world and what the world thinks success looks like. Because again, God's purpose is designed for each one of us specifically. And what we're going to talk about today is how moms, you first have to get yourself to a place where you're operating on purpose before you can begin to launch out and say to your children, I need you to get on purpose. These are the things you need to understand. You got to do things a certain way. First, we have to experience that for ourselves. And I shared the story of how I lacked purpose and I was doing my own thing. I was making good money, but I was on a path of I was average in God's sight. I wasn't living according to his purpose. So I was doing the things that I wanted to do, and he was blessing me through it because he's just such a good God. But once I came into my purpose, every area of my life flourished, and I began to implement the same strategies with my children who are now young adults, and they're doing very well operating in purpose. And it's a blueprint. God has given it to us, and I'm here to share it with you. But we're going to start with ourselves. So moms, let's get started. And as we do every week, we're going to start with a couple of questions. One of the questions I want to ask you today, and I want you to put it down in the comments below. I want to find out from you, moms, what is the one thing that you believe in your mind, you believe it with all your heart, that you can control as it relates to your children? When I say control means whatever it means to you. Control may mean your children must do what you say. Control may mean that they follow in your footsteps. Control could mean anything. But I want you to identify, or I want you to think, and you don't, if you feel that it would be harmful to you in some way to put it in the comments, write it down so you can have it, because we're going to address it as we go through how we identify the steps for moms to be on purpose before you can get your kids on purpose. So again, that question is, what is that one thing that you know for sure that you really believe you do that can control your children? What do you believe control is as it relates to your children? Okay. So I want to give you 4 concrete steps towards getting yourself on purpose. And the first one is you have to identify some truths within yourself. And one of those truths that's going to be instrumental in your success as a mom and helping your children into purpose is to identify people who have hurt you and that you have not forgiven completely. Not just verbally, but completely forgiven them to a place where you're no longer burdened by what happened. You've forgiven them to a place where when you see them, your stomach doesn't turn. You've forgiven them to a place where you don't talk about them to other people or the situation anymore. So I want you to identify that person and that situation that's causing unforgiveness. If it's more than one thing, Identify it, because you have to address unforgiveness in your life so that that barrier to accessing God for the things that you want to understand about your purpose, that you want to be revealed, can be clearly revealed. So that's the first step. We're going to talk about forgiveness, okay? So when you identify that thing and that person, your forgiveness has to begin with the truth about the matter. The truth about the matter says, what was my role in this situation? Whatever it was, we all played some part, okay? Even if you're innocent, right? What was your role? The truth of the matter is, I didn't do anything wrong. This person, these people, they hurt me. It's hard for me to forgive. Whatever that is, I want you to identify it, and then I want you to begin to ask God daily to help you forgive. Tell God all about it in your prayer time. Tell him things that you just have never verbalized before, and ask him to touch your heart so that you can forgive. Now, once that forgiveness comes out of your mouth and out of your heart, and you say, you may not have access to these people anymore, and you don't have to speak to them to say, I forgive you. You can forgive them in your heart and never open that wound or that situation with that person again. But God knows your heart. So forgiveness is the first step, okay? And then you're going to begin to ask God to reveal to you your purpose. It's really that simple. But here are some steps to hearing God's voice and when he answers you, okay? So we can ask God, why was I created? Why did you put me here on earth? I thought it was for one thing, but as I go through life, I realize maybe not so much. I'm still having the fog. I don't understand. So we begin to seek God for our purpose. And one of the ways that you begin to understand clearly what God has to say to you is through a process of prayer and fasting, okay? So as you begin to say, God, I'm serious. I need to understand what my purpose is. Understanding that your answer may not come that same day. It may not come that week. It may not even come that year. But God operates in seasons, right? So as we pray and as we fast, we can expect to hear God speak to us. It may not be the answer that we're looking for our purpose immediately, but God will begin to reveal himself to us in a different way. We'll get closer as we pray, as we fast. Prayer and fasting is not for everybody all at the same time. Often at the beginning of the year, if we're involved with if we're members of a church, the church does like a congregational fast, and everybody fasts. Usually you fast from food for a certain amount of days or something that you want to give up. But this is a fast specifically asking God to, as you abstain from food, it may be that you're fasting from reality TV. It may be that you're fasting from things that kind of take your attention away from focusing on what God would have for you. During that time of prayer and fasting, you're not just, I'm just not eating. But when you're not eating, you're praying. You're reading your word. You're asking God to help you continue to forgive and not to have relive those memories, the pain of the memories. We'll never forget those things because the mind doesn't work that way. God didn't create us to forget. He created us to forget the pain. So that can be removed, and then we can begin to move forward. So first step, forgiveness. Second, asking God to reveal himself and to reveal your purpose through a time of prayer and fasting, okay? Then the third thing, very interesting, I want us to be very open about something. Children are always watching us. As moms, they watch everything that we do. And then sometimes, years later, they'll bring it up. And I'm like, how did you even, I didn't even know you knew I did that. However, they're watching. So as you pray and fast from things. Don't hide it. Let them know. No matter what their age, if they're elementary school, middle school, high school, young adults, let them know I'm fasting and I'm praying and I'm asking God to reveal my purpose to me. Let them see the process, because when God does it for you and you begin to share with them how they can begin to move and operate in their purpose, you're going to walk them through some of the same steps, okay? So, in doing that, being open, that means that if you're fasting from meat, if you're fasting a certain time of day, there are no rules that are going to come from me to you on how to fast. You're fasting, you know what your lifestyle is like. You know what you should be fasting from, and you know what you can tolerate. You know your work schedule, you know your dietary concerns. So if you're fasting from reality TV, make it very clear, I'm fasting from reality TV. I'm not watching that show for the next 30 days. Okay? And I'm going to say 21 days, between 21 and 30 days, primarily because you want to establish a discipline that comes with prayer and fasting and spending quality time with God uninterrupted, okay, during that time of prayer and fasting, whatever that time is for you. So don't make it, this is not a punishment. It is a way to get closer to God so he can reveal something so important to you that's going to carry you the rest of your life so you can live life and love it on purpose, okay? So as you are identifying what it is you're going to fast from and you're open with your family and your friends about it, even because if friends are involved, you need to say to them, hey, I'm not going to that place that we normally go to. It may not be a bad, sinful place. It just may be something that takes time away. They need to be aware that you're just not going to do that. Now, we don't need to say to them, I'm praying and I'm fasting for purpose, but for your children, it's important for them to understand, okay? Not necessarily for the people around you. And the fourth thing that you're going to do is you are going to plan time individually, alone time, the time that you spend with God. Ask God to help you write out a plan for how you're going to dedicate time to your child or children to help them come into their purpose. And the reason this is important is because you can go through this entire wonderful process of spending time with the Lord and hearing from God, and he reveals things to you about yourself, even as you begin to forgive others. That may be a process. That may take some time, but you have to make the step. So as you're going through that, your life is going to change for the better. Because you're going to get closer to God, you're going to hear from him, you're going to be in your word more, and God is going to reveal things to you, very specific things that are going to shift the way you do things as you come off of this fast and prayer time, okay? When that happens, you have to have a plan, because otherwise you'll go back to life as usual. And it's after this initial step, these 4 steps, there's no back to life as usual, because one of 2 things are going to happen. Either you're going to hear from God and accept what he says in your prayer time and fasting, or you're going to try to reason it and say that couldn't be what God said because that's too much work. It can't be what God says because everybody has always told me something different. This is the time when you go through these 4 steps of forgiveness, of dedicating time to ask God through prayer and fasting for your purpose, and dedicating time to plan for your children and helping them in purpose, and being open about what you're doing. During this time, your life is going to change for the better. You're going to begin to develop a habit and a discipline for praying, for fasting, and for getting closer to God and hearing his voice. So that time that you plan, remember, things are going to be different, but all for good. When you know your children's schedules, put your time aside, okay? and set it up so that your children know that they are a priority and that their purpose will be revealed to them because mom did it first, and it is a process. Okay? So I want to also, last question I want you to put in the comments below is I want you to just kind of jot down some things that you've heard about purpose and some of the challenges to learning your purpose. What are some of the challenges that you've heard? What are some of the challenges that you think you may have? And I ask that because as the next podcast, the next episode, we're going to address some of those as we begin to move, because the next episode is going to, by then you will have started your planning. Okay? So keep in mind that we're moving forward. This is mom's way to get her children on purpose. It starts with you. It starts with me as a mom, okay? And if you're the mother of, you have a friend or a sister, do it together. I think it can be very helpful. I've seen women do this together and they've been very successful. They had someone to lean on. They had someone to reach out to and say, hey, this is beginning to get a little difficult for me. You have accountability partners, okay? You can pray together. You can share experiences and you can reach out and you can let me know how it's going for you. Okay, but this is important. Just like anything else we do with our children, we plan their education, we plan their sports, we plan their summer vacation, we plan the things that are going to directly affect their lives here. So let's plan purpose for our children so that they can be effective and they can live life and love it on purpose.